Alright, I'm going to give you a quick rundown on how to work the patch bay here at the Pierce College Recording Studio. Going to go over how we have things routed, how to route a microphone or instrument into your DAW so you can record, and also how to patch into some of the outboard gear. Alright, so this is the first really important thing to know about the patch bay. If you take a look, you'll see that we have multiple rows of patch bays. Each patch bay has a top row and a bottom row. So these two are patch bay 1, these two are patch bay 2, and these are patch bay 3, and so on. And this is the top of patch bay 1, this is the bottom row of patch bay 1, this is the top row of patch bay 2, and this is the bottom row of patch bay 2, and so on. If you look at the map, you'll see this is patch bay 1, patch bay 2, and patch bay 3, and the top and bottom rows for each. I know explaining that is a little redundant, but it's important for you to understand this so that when I say, for example, the bottom row of patch bay 3, you know exactly where I'm referring to. So in this recording studio, we have it set up to outs over ins. This means that the top rows will always be outputs, and the bottom rows will always be inputs. With that in mind, let's take a look at the patch bay map. For the purposes of patching into Pro Tools or Reaper to make a basic recording, you will mostly be focusing on these top 3 rows. Let's take a look at the top row. So remembering that the top row is always outputs, you'll see that the top row are microphone outputs 1 through 24, and these are coming from the recording room. If you go into the recording room, you'll see a bunch of wall outlets with XLR inputs. Each of these are labeled 1 through 32. Inputs 1 through 8 are in the drum room, 9 through 16 are in the vocal booth, 17 through 24 are on the wall in front of the piano, and 25 through 32 are on the wall behind the door when you first walk in. You'll notice that the top row only goes to 24. Outputs 25 through 32 are located on the top row of the second patch bay. So right here. So in summary, microphone outputs coming from the recording room are located on the top row of patch bay 1 and the top row of patch bay 2. Now let's take a look at the second row, or the bottom row of the first patch bay. 1 through 16 are the inputs into the C24 mixer. This is where you patch into the board so you can record inside your DAW. Right now you can only record up to 16 channels at the same time. So let's take this knowledge and patch in a microphone to be recorded into our DAW. So let's say we're in the recording room and we take our microphone and we plug into input number 5. Now let's go back to the patch bay. Since we plugged into input 5, now we need to take a patch cable and plug into the output of 5, which as you can see is number 5 here on the top row. Now let's take the other end of this cable and plug it into input 1 of the C24 board, which if you look at the map is number 1 on the bottom row of the same patch bay. Now we just need to open our DAW, whether that be Reaper or Pro Tools, create a new track, and select input 1, or whichever input you plugged into. Now we have successfully patched in a microphone from the recording room so we can start recording. Now let's say I want to plug in a second microphone and I want to plug this into, let's say, input number 27. Now coming back to the patch bay and looking at the map, I can see that output 27 is on number 3 on the top row of the second patch bay. So I plug one end into that and plug the other end into input 2. Now I can select input 2 inside my DAW and I'll be ready to record that as well as the first microphone we set up. Alright, now I'm going to go over the rest of this map and how to patch into some of this outboard gear. Channels 1 through 8 on the third patch bay are labeled tie from console. Patching into these is how you route from here to the patch bay on the desk and vice versa. If you take a look at the map for the desk patch bay, you'll find a similar heading saying tie to rack. This allows you to send audio signal back and forth between the two patch bays. Next on the map, you'll see the reel-to-reel tape on 9 and 10 of the third patch bay. Remember, it's outs over ins, so bottom row is going to be into the tape machine and the top row is going to come out of the tape machine. LA2A compressors are on 15 and 16, the 1176s are on 17 and 18. The rest of the outboard gear is not currently hooked up. Now, unfortunately, we do not have any preamps installed on this rack. What this means is that, let's say you plugged in a microphone into channel 1 in the recording room. You cannot go from microphone output 1 straight into the compressor. This is because the microphone signal needs to be brought to line level first. To do this, you will need to send the signal to the preamps on the mixer first before you send it to any of the outboard gear. And here's how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to take this microphone and plug it into input 1 on the mixer. Now I'm going to go over to the desk patch bay and find C24 line outputs, which is the top row of patch bay 3. Since I'm plugged into 1, I'm going to take the output of 1 and plug it into the tie to rack, letter E, which is number 3 here. Now I go back to the rack and find the letter E tie, which is here on number 3 as well, and plug in a patch cable. Now I'm sending audio signal from the desk patch bay over to the rack patch bay. Now I'm going to connect this to the input of the LA2A compressor, which, if I look on the map, is the bottom row of the third patch bay, numbers 15 and 16. I'm going to go ahead and patch in a number 15 because I'm running a mono mic. Now I can come out of the compressor and into input 2. Now I just need to turn on the compressor, select input 2 on my DAW, and press record, and now I have some compressed audio. Now lastly, I'll go over a couple more things for the desk patch bay. You can see here on the top row, numbers 13 and 14 are labeled reverb. These connect to the Lexicon reverb on the desk, and if you would like to patch into the studio monitors, plug into the very bottom row, numbers 15 and 16. Those are labeled alt speakers. And very lastly, if you're ever having trouble getting sound to come out of the speakers, double check that the mute button on the C24 board is turned off and that nothing is patched into the alternative speakers.